The spaceport was loud, bright, and full of rushing footsteps. Humans, aliens, and droids moved in every direction, but no one noticed the figure falling to her knees near the docking bay. She was tall, slender, and covered in a smooth, faintly glowing skin. Her clothes were torn, her hands trembling, and her silver blue eyes wide with pain. People passed her by. Some glanced but quickly turned away. No one wanted trouble. No one wanted to get involved. Eli was sitting near a noodle stall, sipping cheap broth and watching the sky ships rise. He was a simple man of rich looks, a kind face, and the type of smile that made children wave at him. He noticed the alien woman fall. At first, he thought she was drunk or maybe injured in a fight. But then he saw her lips move silently, as if whispering for help. No one stopped. His heart beat faster. He stood up and walked toward her. "Hey," he said softly, kneeling beside her. "Are you okay?" Her head turned slowly and her eyes locked onto his. There was fear in them, but also something else, a silent cry for life. She tried to speak, but only a sharp breath came out. Her body shook, then went limp in his arms. "She needs a medic." Eli shouted, looking around. "Somebody help." A patrol droid rolled over, scanned her, and spoke in a cold voice. Subject, female, Yalri species. Organ failure suspected, medical treatment denied due to non-human priority. What? Eli blinked. "She's dying. Recommend disposal or transfer to non-priority wing." The droid replied, already turning away. Eli stared down at her, his jaw tight. She was barely breathing, her skin glowing faintly like dying stars. Her pulse was weak. But something inside him refused to leave her. He picked her up gently, ignoring the stares, and mutters, "I don't care what you are," he whispered. "No one dies alone." At the emergency clinic, the human doctor looked over her scans. "She's suffering from renal decompensation syndrome," he said. "Her kind has twin kidneys." "But both have failed," Eli asked. "Can we fix it?" "Only with a transplant," the doctor said. "But human organs don't match their biology. She has maybe 3 hours left." Eli paused, then asked, "Test mine anyway?" The doctor stared at him. "Why?" "Do it," Eli replied, voice steady. "Please." The test took only 10 minutes, and when the results came in, the doctor frowned deeply. "This is impossible," he muttered. "You're a near-perfect match." Eli nodded slowly. "Then do the surgery." "Hold on," the doctor said. "This is dangerous. Your body might reject the aftermath. She may not survive. And you could suffer for the rest of your life." "I know," Eli said. "But she'll die in 3 hours if I don't." They gave him the form, the waiver, the warnings. Eli signed everything with shaking hands. The alien woman hadn't even woken up. She didn't know who he was. She didn't know what he was about to give her. But Eli sat beside her before they wheeled her in. He looked at her face, strangely peaceful. Despite the pain, he gently took her cold hand. "My name's Eli," he whispered. "I don't know who you are, but you deserve to live." The lights above the operating room blinked red. 2 teams worked at once, one on the donor, one on the alien. Her alien blood shimmered blue. His ran deep red, machines beeped, hands moved fast, and for a while, everything balanced on a knife's edge. The surgeon shouted, her systems rejecting. Then the nurse yelled, "Weight stabilizing," outside. The hallway was quiet. The stars outside the glass dome blinked softly in the dark sky. And no one knew that inside that cold room, a human and an alien had just become part of each other. Hours later, the doctor stepped out and sighed. "They both made it," he said, barely. Eli was unconscious, pale and weak. The alien woman was still sedated, but her body had accepted the new kidney. Her life had been saved. The nurses moved Eli to a shared recovery room. They didn't have space elsewhere, so they placed him right beside her. Two strangers, now forever connected. No one knew what this act would lead to. No one expected headlines, friendships, or whispers of change. But in that quiet room, filled with soft beeps and clean white sheets, a bond had begun, not with words, not with promises, but with sacrifice. The alien woman slowly opened her eyes. She turned her head to the side and saw him, a human, asleep and pale, breathing softly. She blinked slowly and a tear rolled down her glowing cheek. Eli woke to a dull pain in his side. The room was dim, filled with the soft hum of machines and the faint scent of medicine. He blinked, his vision blurry, but slowly focused on the figure lying in the next bed. The alien woman, still sleeping, her chest rising gently with every breath. He smiled. Weakly, even though pain shot through his body, she was alive. That was enough. A nurse noticed he was awake and came over quickly. "You're lucky," she said, with a small smile. "Most wouldn't make it through that kind of surgery, Eli." Tried to sit up, but the pain made him wince. "You said she would have died," he whispered. "Yes," the nurse nodded. "But because of you, she didn't." She checked the monitor beside his bed and added softly, "Your kidney is working inside her now. Her body accepted it better than we expected." He closed his eyes for a moment, breathing through the pain. He didn't need thanks. He just needed to know she'd live. Hours passed, maybe days. Eli drifted in and out of sleep, each time catching small changes, doctors coming and going. The woman's color slowly returning, her body no longer trembling. And then, the third day, her eyes opened. Aslan turned her head slowly. Her mind foggy, but her senses clear enough to register her surroundings. She felt something strange peace. For the first time in months, her body wasn't screaming in pain. Her heart beat steady, her breath smooth. She turned and saw him lying nearby. Wires still attached to his arms, a soft smile on his lips, even. In sleep, a nurse entered, surprised to see her awake. "You should rest," she said gently. "You are safe." Aslan whispered, her voice raspy. "Who is he?" The nurse paused, then replied, "He gave you his kidney." Aslan's eyes widened. "What?" "He's human," the nurse explained. "And you?" "You are Yulari, a noble race, right?" But even though he knew the risks, he insisted. "He wanted to save you." Aslan's hand trembled as she reached toward him, stopping just short of touching. "Why would he do this?" She whispered, as if asking the universe. There was no answer, only the slow, steady rhythm of machines. Her kind did not believe in random kindness. Her world was about power, survival, and silence. But this man had done something impossible. When Eli woke again, she was staring at him. Their eyes met, silence stretching between them. "Hi," he said softly, voice dry. "You're awake." She nodded slowly. "You gave me part of your body," she said, still not believing it. "Why?" Eli shrugged, wincing as he did. "You were dying," he said, "and I was there. You didn't know me." She said, her voice growing stronger. "I could have been anyone. I could have been dangerous. You were someone who didn't want to die." He answered simply. That was enough for me. Aslan didn't know what to say. No one in her life had ever done something without wanting something back. Not her council, not her guards, not even her own family. But here was a man who gave her a second chance, didn't even ask her name. "I'm Aslan," she said quietly, "former highborn of the Yulari courts, now hunted, broken, and nearly dead." "Nice to meet you, Aslan," Eli said with a tired grin. "I'm Eli, just a mechanic from Docking Bay 42. She blinked at him. A royal noble and a repairman. Their lives couldn't be more different, and yet one had saved the other. Without question, as the days passed, Aslan began recovering quickly. Yulari bodies healed faster with proper care. She walked within a week, her strength returning. but she never left the room without checking on Eli first. He was slower too. His human body was weaker, but he never complained. They spoke more now. He told her about his small home, his long workdays, his quiet life. She told him about her world, ruled by fear, betrayal, and bloodlines. Her father had been murdered. Her title stripped, an assassin sent to finish her. That's why she'd collapsed near the spaceport. Running, hiding, almost ready to die. But now, she wasn't alone anymore. One evening, she brought a tray of food, carefully balanced. "Hospital food is disgusting," she said with a smirk, "so I convinced a nurse to let me cook." Eli took the first bite and smiled. "Okay, you're officially a lifesaver too." They both laughed. It sounded strange but comforting. It filled the sterile white room with something new connection. Still, deep inside Azalin's heart, questions burned. What did she owe him now? What would happen when they left this place? Could someone like her ever stay near someone like him without bringing danger? She didn't know the answers, but one thing was clear. Her second life had started because of this human, and for the first time in years, she didn't feel afraid. Eli sat in the hospital garden, a blanket over his legs, watching the pale light of a nearby moon drift across the sky. His recovery was slow, but the fresh air helped. He leaned back and smiled as he heard familiar footsteps approach. Aislinn stood beside him, arms crossed, her long coat brushing the ground. "You shouldn't be outside in your condition," she said, pretending to scold him. "And you shouldn't be walking around the galaxy with assassins hunting you," Eli replied, grinning weakly. "But here we are." Azalin shook her head. But there was warmth in her eyes now, a softness that hadn't been there before. She had healed faster than expected. The doctors called it accelerated alien recovery. But they also warned Hurley's healing would take longer. His body had endured shock, trauma, and blood loss. Still, he smiled through it all. She sat beside him and offered a small packet. Inside were thin, sweet crackers from her homeworld. "They taste like honey," she said, "but sharper." Eli took a bite and raised his eyebrows. "Sweet and dangerous," he said. "Kind of like you." She laughed, a quiet sound, surprising even herself. It had been so long since she'd laughed. They sat together. No words for a while. Just the sound of distant hovercrafts and wind between the high towers. Then Azalin turned toward him, serious now. "You gave me your kidney," she said. "You saved my life." Eli looked down. "Yeah, I guess I did. I owe you," she said softly. "Everything." He looked at her again. Tired eyes full of calm. "No, you don't," he said. "That's not how this works." "I was a stranger," she said. "You risked your life for me. You were someone who needed help." Eli answered. That was enough. Azalin didn't know how to respond. On her planet, favors were traded, debts paid with gold, land, or blood. But this human didn't ask for anything. He didn't even want to be remembered. She watched him carefully. He was kind, simple, and honest. But there was something hidden, to a quiet sadness. He didn't speak much about his past, but she noticed the way he looked away when someone asked about his family. The way his voice grew softer when talking about his empty home. When she finally left the hospital, she didn't return to hiding. She followed Eli. He protested at first. "You really don't need to do this," he said, but she insisted. "I want to know the man who gave me a second life." So she moved into the small room next to his. In a broken building near Docking Bay 42, the walls were cracked, the roof leaked, and the heat system barely worked. But Eli smiled and said, "It's home." Azalin watched his life closely. He woke early, ate little, and worked long hours fixing broken ships. He was respected, but quiet. Never asking for attention, she saw how he helped old pilots without being asked. How he gave his lunch to a starving child near the scrapyard. How he repaired a stranger's hoverbike and said, "Pay me later," with no promise they ever would. Eli didn't do it for rewards. He did it because it was right. And slowly, something inside Aslan began to change. She had grown up with steel walls and golden halls. Her life had been surrounded by power, pride, and politics. But here, in this simple place, she saw real strength. One evening, she cooked him a meal from ingredients she bought herself. It wasn't perfect, but it was warm. He took a bite, and his face lit up. "This is amazing," he said. Even though the spice burned his tongue, Aslan laughed and said, "Liar." He smiled, "Maybe, but I'm a grateful liar." After dinner, she found an old blanket and placed it over his shoulders. "You should rest more," she said. "You gave too much of yourself." Eli looked up at her, his eyes searching hers. "You keep saying I gave you something," he said quietly. "But maybe you gave me something too." She tilted her head, confused. "I was alone," he said. "Didn't matter to anyone. Didn't have anyone. But now you're here, and things feel different." Aslan's chest tightened. She didn't know how to answer, but she reached out and gently touched his hand. "No one's ever said that to me before," she whispered, "that I could give something back just by being." Here, their hands stayed together, not as strangers, not as debt holder and lifesaver, but as two broken souls slowly finding warmth in each other. That night, Aslan stood on the rooftop, watching stars drift slowly across the sky. She didn't feel hunted or broken or royal. She just felt human. And when Eli's voice called out from the window below, "Don't stay out too long. It's cold," she smiled and whispered to herself, "Maybe this is what home feels like." The sun was setting over the old spaceport, casting long shadows on the cracked ground. Eli stood by his toolbox, wiping grease from his hands. Another long day of repairs, cheap parts, and tired smiles inside his small workshop. The air was warm, filled with the smell of cooked food and machine oil. Aslan was there, wearing human clothes now, a simple jacket and scarf. She chopped vegetables carefully, her movements steady and calm. This was their quiet rhythm work: talk, cook, laugh, sleep. But that peace didn't last. That evening, as Eli closed the workshop shutters, he heard something strange. Footsteps, too quiet, too smooth. He turned quickly, his instincts sharp after years in a rough city. Nothing was there, but the silence felt wrong. Inside, Aslan paused, her knife frozen mid-air. Her ears twitched. She heard it too, the sound of soft metal scraping against stone. She moved quickly to the back room, grabbing a small device from her pack, a scanner, old but reliable. Her fingers trembled as she watched the screen. A red blinked. Someone was outside, watching, waiting. Her heart pounded. "They found me," she whispered. Eli turned as she burst into the workshop. "What is it?" "They're here," she said, voice tight. "The ones who want me dead." He didn't ask why or how. He just moved, grabbed a wrench, locked the door, shut off the lights. Moments later, the first shadow appeared, a figure in black armor, face hidden, weapon in hand. Then another and another. They didn't knock, they just tried to break in. The door shuddered as a plasma bolt hit it. Eli grabbed Aslan's arm and pulled her behind the counter. "Stay down," he said, heart racing. "No," she replied, pulling free. "I'm not letting them hurt you." She stood up, hands glowing faintly with energy, old combat training from her royal days. With a sharp motion, she sent a shockwave through the air, knocking one attacker off his feet. But there were more. Too many. Eli fought, swinging his heavy wrench, knocking out a man trying to sneak through the back window. Blood dripped from a cut on his forehead, but he didn't stop. Not when Aslan was in danger. Outside, the noise grew louder. Neighbors began to notice, lights flicking on in nearby buildings. Then a voice shouted, "Hey! What's going on?" Another voice joined in, "That's Eli's place." A moment later, 3 men from the scrapyard appeared, carrying tools. One shouted, "If you're attacking Eli, you're attacking all of us." More people came, shopkeepers, techs, even a few street kids with old bats and pipes. They didn't know who Aslan really was. They didn't care. They knew Eli. The man who fixed their heaters for free, who shared his food, who never turned anyone away. Together, they fought, pushed back, stood strong, and the assassins strained, silent, ill-treated. Not because they were defeated by force, but because they were overwhelmed by something alien to them. Community. After the battle, smoke rose from the broken window. The workshop, a mess of sparks and shattered tools. Eli leaned against the wall. Breathing hard, Aslan stood beside him. Face bruised but eyes shining. "You should have run," he said, between breaths. "I'm not leaving you," she replied. "Not now, not ever." He looked at her, surprised. "You don't owe me anything." "I know," she said, "but I want to stay." The neighbors helped clean up. One woman patched Eli's wound, while a boy brought him water. A large man from the salvage yard said, "We got your back, Eli." Aslan stood quietly, watching it all. She had come from a world where power ruled, where strength meant fear. But here, true strength came from kindness. From giving without expecting anything in return. That night, Eli sat on the rooftop again, staring at the stars. His body ached, his side burned, but his heart felt full. Aslan sat beside him, silent for a long time. Then she said, "Back on. My world, I was nothing without my title, without my guards. But here, you were everything to these people. And you didn't even try," he chuckled. "Guess I'm just lucky." "No," she said, turning to him, "You're good." He looked at her, the glow of the stars reflected in her silver eyes. She wasn't a stranger anymore. She wasn't just the woman he saved. She was someone who had saved him too. From a life of silence, of emptiness, their fingers brushed lightly. Not a promise, not yet, but a beginning. And in the shadows of that broken rooftop, with the night still humming, and bruises still fresh, a bond stronger than blood began to grow. Eli hadn't slept well in days. His dreams were strange, filled with glowing lights and voices he didn't understand. He woke up sweating, gasping for breath. His body felt different, heavy and hot, like something inside was no longer human. At first, he thought it was just the pain from healing. But then came the tremors. His hands would shake when he picked up tools. His eyes would flash bright for a second, catching light like mirrors, and sometimes, just sometimes, he could hear things no one else could, soft whispers and alien tongues. He tried to hide it, tried to act normal, but Aslan noticed. One afternoon, as he reached to lift a broken engine, she saw the sparks jump from his fingertips. His skin shimmered faintly, the same way hers used to before the illness took her. "Eli," she said gently, "what's happening to you?" He didn't answer at first, just stared at his hands, covered in old scars and new veins glowing faintly under the skin. "I think your kidney did more than save your life," he whispered. Aslan stepped closer, worry in her voice. "This shouldn't be possible, I know," he said, "but look at me. I can hear machines before they break. I can feel heat like never before. Sometimes I can see energy running through walls." She reached out, placing her hand on his chest. His heartbeat was strong, steady, but different. She could feel her own kind's rhythm echoing within him. "Your body is adapting," she said, almost in disbelief. "Human cells shouldn't change this way." Even with yelly tissue, Eli gave a dry laugh. "Maybe I was always weird," he said, trying to lighten the moment, but Aslan didn't smile. She was afraid not of him, but for him. They went to a trusted medic, one who didn't ask questions. He ran scans, checked DNA, and frowned deeply. "This is unheard of," he muttered. "His biology is rewriting itself. Not fully alien, not fully human. But something new." Aslan's voice was quiet. "Is it dangerous?" The medic shook his head slowly. "Not yet," he said, "but it's unstable. If the changes continue, his nervous system could become overloaded. He might gain new abilities or lose himself completely." Eli sat in silence, trying to process it all. He had only wanted to help, to save a life. Now his own life was changing in ways he never asked for. Aslan squeezed his hand. "We'll face this together," she said firmly. He looked at her, and for a moment he saw something in her eyes he hadn't seen before. Fear. Well, not fear of him, but fear of losing him. The days passed. Eli's strength returned faster than it should have. He lifted heavy parts with ease, his reflexes sharper. He could sense when someone was behind him without turning. But at night, the pain came. His body would tremble. Glowing lines racing across his arms and chest. Sometimes he'd collapse. Coughing, heart pounding too fast, and always, Aslan was there, holding him, calming him. She began studying her old science journals. Her people's knowledge of biofusion, regeneration, and genetic drift. She contacted an old ally and Secretar healer who once served the royal court. The healer came. In disguise, examined Eli carefully. After hours of tests, she spoke. "His soul remains human, but his body is becoming something greater. If guided, this can be a blessing. But if ignored, it will tear him apart." Eli smiled weakly. "So I'm either evolving or exploding. Nice odds." The healer gave Aslan a small device. This will track his vitals and help stabilize his energy. But it must be monitored closely that night. As Aslan placed the device on Eli's wrist, he whispered, "You don't have to do this. You don't owe me anything." She met his eyes, firm and glowing. "I know," she said. "I'm not doing this because of a debt. I'm doing it because I care." Eli looked at her, searching for the right words, but none came. Instead, he leaned his head against her shoulder. And in that moment, he felt safe. They started calling it the bond, a shared connection. Stronger than logic, deeper than blood. Eli was changing, but Aslan stayed by his side not as a protector, not as royalty, but as someone who believed. In him together, they walked a path no one had walked before. One human, one alien, bound by sacrifice. Growing through pain, and building something stronger than fate could ever predict. Asterisk, the message came late at night, a sharp beep from Aslan's old communicator. Hidden in a drawer beneath her clothes, she stared at it, her breath caught in her throat. The screen flashed a symbol, the royal crest of Yalera. For months, it had been silent. She had assumed they had forgotten her, or still wanted her dead. But now, someone was calling her back. Eli looked up from the small table where he was fixing a power core. He saw her face, pale and frozen. "What is it?" he asked, putting his tools down. She didn't answer right away. She just sat, staring at the symbol as if it might vanish. Then she whispered, "They want me to return." Eli stood slowly, wiping his hands. "Is it a trap?" "I don't think so," she said. "This mark. It only comes from those who support my bloodline. Something must have changed back home." He nodded, watching her closely. "You want to go?" Her fingers tightened around the communicator. "I don't know," she admitted. "Part of me does. My people are suffering. My enemies have grown bold. Maybe there's still a place for me there." Eli said nothing, but she saw the way his eyes dropped. Just slightly. "You think I'll leave and never come back?" she said. "Quietly, I think," he replied. "That you have a whole galaxy waiting for you. And I'm just a mechanic with a half-alien kidney." She stepped closer, anger and pain in her voice. "Don't say that," she whispered. "You gave me my life, Eli. You're not just anything." He looked at her, his voice low. And what if you go, Aislinn? What if you stand on your golden throne and forget the broken workshop we shared? She reached out, her hand trembling. I'll never forget, she said, but this. This might be my only chance to help my people. Eli nodded slowly. The truth stinging but clear. You should go, he said. His voice was calm, but his heart cracked. You were never meant to stay hidden forever. Aislinn blinked back the tears forming in her silver eyes. I'll come back, she promised. No matter what happens, I'll return. He gave a small smile. Then I'll be here, he said. With my wrenches and terrible cooking. They both laughed, softly, painfully. The next day, a royal transport ship arrived quietly. It shimmered in the early morning light, shaped like a silver bird. Aislinn stood at the edge of the landing pad, her coat fluttering in the wind. Eli stood beside her, holding a small bag he packed for her food, a solar pendant, and a wrench just in case. I don't know what they'll say when I arrive. She said they might accept me or reject me again. Then give them a reason to follow you. Eli replied, be the leader they never expected. She reached up and gently pressed her forehead to his, a Yoli sign of deep trust. I will come back, she whispered. And with that, she stepped onto the ramp. The doors closed, the engines roared. And the ship rose into the sky. Eli watched until it disappeared into the clouds. Then he turned and walked home alone. Weeks passed. Eli returned to work, fixed broken ships, helped neighbors, smiled when people asked about the alien girl. But each night he sat on the rooftop, staring at the stars, waiting, wondering, hurting. His body was still changing faster, sharper, stronger, but his heart felt heavier. He missed her. More than he had expected, more than he could admit out loud. Then, one night, the stars blinked. 1, 2. Then, all at once, a shadow passed across the moon, and a voice echoed in his ears, deep and ancient. You are not just human anymore. He gasped, gripping his chest. Energy surged through him, brighter than ever before. His vision blurred, and for a second, he saw Aislinn standing in a throne room, raising her hand. Crowds bowed before her, her voice strong and clear. I stand not alone, she said, but with the one who gave me life. The vision faded. He collapsed, breathing hard, and then light filled the sky. A ship descended, not silver, but gold, bigger than before. Decorated in banners of peace and unity, the door opened, and there she was. Aislinn stepped out, no longer hiding. Wearing her royal armor, glowing softly, but her eyes searched only for him when she saw him on the rooftop. Her face broke into a smile. She leaped down without hesitation, landing gracefully. I told you I'd come back, she said, her voice trembling with joy. Eli stood there, speechless. You really did it, he whispered. You became their queen. I didn't come back as a queen, she said, reaching for his hand. I came back as yours, and in that moment, as the night sky danced with golden lights, they knew this was not the end. It was the beginning of something far greater. The golden ship landed quietly on the outskirts of the city. No royal parade, no soldiers, no media drones, just Aislinn. Stepping down the ramp with steady feet and eyes full of warmth, Eli stood there, stunned. For weeks, he had imagined this moment, her return, the sound of her voice, the glow in her eyes. But nothing prepared him for the way she looked at him now. Not as a queen, not as someone rescued, but as someone who belonged. She walked straight to him, not caring about the crowd that had started to gather. Eli opened his mouth to speak, but she placed a finger to his lips. I kept my promise, she whispered, and I've come back with an offer you can't refuse. He raised an eyebrow. Oh, what kind of offer? Not gold, she said, grinning. Not power, not land. I want to build something real with you." Eli stared at her, his heart pounding in his chest. "Here?" he asked. "On this broken, rusted little corner of the galaxy?" "Exactly." "Here," she nodded, "because this is where I found life again. This is where I found you." Weeks passed. Aslan didn't return to the throne. Instead, she used her new power to broker peace between her people and Earth. No more hidden royal bloodlines. No more cold councils. She focused on unity. Starting from a place no one expected, Eli's neighborhood, with her help, the old workshop was rebuilt, now called the Crossing Place. It became a repair hub, a meeting hall, and a shelter. Aliens and humans came there to talk, trade, and learn. Children played in the yard where ships once sparked and burned. Food was shared between species who had once feared each other, and in the middle of it all stood Eli and Aslan side by side. Eli's body had stabilized. The alien energy within him no longer fought to break free. Instead, it worked with him, guiding his senses, enhancing his strength. He still looked human, but he was more now. A living symbol of what was possible. Scientists from both worlds came to study him, but Eli refused to be locked in labs or treated like an experiment. He said, "I'm not a project. I'm a person. And I've got a leaky solar panel to fix. So unless your test can wait, I've got work." Aslan would laugh every time he said it. She still wore her armor sometimes, but now it was coated with dust, flour, and grease. She cooked meals with the neighbors, read books with the local children. She had traded a palace for a porch. And she didn't regret it for a second. At night, they would sit on the rooftop like old times, watching the stars, holding hands, saying nothing. One evening, Eli looked over at her and asked, "Do you ever miss it?" "The throne," she said, tilting her head. He nodded. She smiled gently. "Sometimes," she said. "But it never made me feel alive the way this does." "And what is this exactly?" he asked, grinning. "This," she said, leaning her head against his shoulder, "is freedom, is family, is love." One day, a group of diplomats arrived from another star system. They wanted to meet the human who gave an alien his kidney. But when they arrived, they found him planting vegetables with children. When asked about the gift he gave, Eli only shrugged. "She was dying," he said. "I just helped." One of the diplomats asked Aslan, "Why not bring him to lead your people?" She smiled, looking at Eli as he wiped dirt on his pants and gave a child a high five. "He leads in his own way," she said, "and that's more powerful than any crown." Years passed. The Crossing Place grew into a village, then a city. And at its heart was a small home, simple, sturdy, and always open. Visitors came from every corner of space, some to be healed, some to learn, some just to see what kindness looked like inside that home. A picture hung above the fireplace. A photo of Eli and Aslan on the day she returned. No royal robe, no ceremony, just two people smiling, holding hands, surrounded by friends. They never called themselves heroes, but the galaxy did. Not because of battles they won, but because of the life they chose. A life built on sacrifice, on hope, and on love that crossed stars and as new ships arrived under peaceful skies, and children of both worlds played in the gardens. Their story lived on, not as a tale of war, but as proof that even the smallest act, a single kidney, a single choice, could change the universe forever.